Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a story that honestly sounds like straight-up science fiction, but I promise you, it is 100% real. We're going to break down exactly how an absolutely impossible ecological disaster, a crisis that actual experts thought was a totally lost cause, was completely reversed. And honestly, the best part, it was solved by the most unexpected, unlikely heroes you could ever imagine. We're talking about the Kubuqi miracle. So let's dive right in and look at the sheer scale of the problem we're dealing with here.
500,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. We're starting our journey in China's Kubuqi Desert, a place that locals didn't just call a desert, they terrifyingly referred to it as the Sea of Death. And well, for very good reason. Every single year, 500,000 acres of land were silently swallowed up by the sand. Just imagine that. 500,000 acres of life just gone. And it wasn't just empty space we're talking about. We're talking fertile agricultural land, entire villages, vital roads, all of it disappearing under these massive waves of sand and blistering winds. The desert wasn't just sitting there, it was actively hunting. People were literally forced to pack up their entire lives and flee. Life was losing the battle here, plain and simple.
Now there's a scientific term for this absolute nightmare: desertification. Basically, it's that devastating process where life and fertility literally drain right out of the earth, leaving behind this unstoppable, expanding wasteland. And Kubuqi, it was one of the absolute worst examples of this on the entire planet. Now it's important to point out here that China wasn't just sitting on its hands. They actually tried to fight it. They poured millions into this, launched these massive projects, built sand control stations, tried all the traditional tree planting methods, but honestly, nothing was working. The ocean of sand was just way too aggressive. Despite all the money, all the tech thrown at it, the battle was being lost. The desertification seemed totally, completely unstoppable. Well, that is, until one man stepped forward.
Enter Wang Wenbiao. When Wang first pitched his big idea to stop the Sea of Death, people literally laughed right in his face. They called him crazy. But Wang? He didn't care. He took his entire life savings, took out these massive loans, and launched a relentless, borderline crazy counterattack against the desert. He rolled in with over 100 bulldozers and a crew of 300 workers, and they just started grinding through these grueling 18-hour workdays right in the middle of the scorching wasteland. You've got to understand, this wasn't some standard government initiative. This was one guy on a seriously obsessive mission. But as you can probably guess, brute force alone doesn't beat a desert. For that, you need a seriously brilliant strategy.
And the mechanical brilliance of Wang's approach here is just incredible. He knew standard trees would just blow away or dry up in seconds. So his team started building these small geometric squares out of dry shrubs, placing them directly onto the sand. These squares acted like a physical shield. They stopped those fierce desert winds from blowing the sand away, and more importantly, they locked in whatever tiny, microscopic amount of moisture was actually in the ground. Then, inside those protective little squares, they planted willow trees. But listen, these aren't just your everyday run-of-the-mill trees. These willows are astonishingly resilient. Their roots can dig a mind-boggling 300 feet deep into the earth just to hunt for hidden water. So the shrub squares gave the trees a fighting chance up top, and the roots did all the heavy lifting below. People were still calling him a madman, but slowly, miraculously, some trees actually started to survive. The sand was stabilizing, but right when victory seemed possible, they hit a massive, massive wall.
And that brings us to the hidden crisis of this whole operation. See, the willow trees were surviving, which is great, but to actually grow strong, sturdy trunks, the tender new branches of those trees had to be constantly pruned and cut back. If they weren't, the trees would just stay weak, get top-heavy, and eventually fail. But think about the sheer logistics for a second. Who on earth is going to manually prune millions of trees across a vast, scorching desert? If you try to hire human labor for that, the cost becomes absolutely astronomical. The time it would take is practically infinite. It was a totally impossible bottleneck. The whole system, all that hard work, was literally about to collapse because of the sheer scale of maintenance required. They needed a miracle, fast.
And here is where the story takes a twist that absolutely nobody saw coming. Seriously. To solve this impossible human labor problem, they brought in fluffy rabbits. Yep, you heard that right, rabbits. Specifically, a very special breed known as the Rex rabbit. They deployed these little animals into the desert to do the exact manual labor that humans couldn't afford to do. Today, they're affectionately known as the white gold engineers. Now you're probably wondering why white gold. Well, it turns out this wasn't just some desperate ecological Hail Mary. It was an absolute economic masterclass. Let's look at the numbers.
This plan was, without a doubt, a total stroke of genius. See, the Rex rabbit has this incredibly soft, highly sought-after fur.
It only costs roughly $2 to raise one of these rabbits, but a single premium pelt, that can sell for up to $30. That is a massive 15 times return on investment from just one single animal. But here's the crazy part. The economics, as amazing as they are just a bonus. The real magic, the actual tangible reason these fluffy little guys save the Kubuqi, lies in their daily habits.
It all builds into this incredible, perfect biological machine. Step 1. Rex rabbits absolutely love eating the tender, new branches of the willow trees. It's their favorite snack. So, by simply eating their natural diet, the rabbits were perfectly pruning the trees, allowing those main trunks to grow thick, strong, and permanent. They literally did the impossible manual labor for free. Step 2. The rabbit droppings. In a dead, sandy wasteland, their droppings acted as this hyper-powerful natural fertilizer, breathing actual life back into the dead soil. And step 3. This is honestly my favorite part. The rabbits would eat grass, but they couldn't fully digest the seeds. So as they're just hopping around the desert living their best lives, they naturally replanted those seeds through their droppings. Within a few years, new grass actually started springing up right out of the sand. Nature and animal perfectly synergized. The wind couldn't blow the sand away anymore. The moisture was locked in, and the desert literally started turning green.
And this ecological victory, it triggered a massive heartwarming ripple effect for the human population too. The local people were actively encouraged to start raising these Rex rabbits themselves. Almost overnight, family homes transformed into these little mini-farms. Locals started selling the valuable rabbit fur. They started harvesting raw materials from the stabilized trees. A vibrant, brand-new green economy bloomed right in the middle of what used to be the Sea of Death. But the absolute most beautiful part of this whole thing? The people who had been forced to flee their homes years ago, the ones who watched their entire lives get swallowed by sand, they finally started coming back. The Kubuqi was alive again. But Wang Wenbiao? Oh, he wasn't done yet. He wanted to take this whole thing to the next level.
Wang looked at this newly stabilized land, and he envisioned a massive technological leap. Right in the middle of the desert, he decided to build a gigantic solar power plant. And because Wang clearly has a flair for the dramatic, the entire solar farm is actually designed in the shape of a massive galloping horse when you view it from above. I mean, how cool is that? It is just this stunning symbol of power and life finally returning to the desert. But make no mistake, this isn't just some giant art project. The sheer scale of this facility is totally mind-blowing.
196,000. That is the number of individual solar panels making up this galloping horse. Just to ground this in reality for a second, those 196,000 panels generate 2.3 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity every single year. That's enough clean energy to comfortably power around 400,000 people. But remember, we're talking about the Kubuqi model here. And in the Kubuqi model, absolutely nothing serves just one purpose. There's a brilliant twist to these solar panels that perfectly blends cutting-edge technology with nature.
First off, the physical presence of the solar panels acts as a massive artificial windbreak. They actually reduce wind speeds across the desert floor by a staggering 50%. Second, the panels themselves create these vast areas of shaded ground underneath, which protects the soil from the scorching sun and allows even more new grass to flourish. And finally, that cool, shaded underbelly provides a perfectly safe grazing space. If you look under those 196,000 panels today, you're going to find rabbits, sheep, and even ducks just thriving under there. It's this completely new ecosystem where high-tech hardware and biology are working hand-in-hand to sustain life.
And let me tell you, the rest of the world has absolutely taken notice. The Kubuqi model isn't just a local miracle anymore. It is now a globally recognized blueprint for fighting desertification. Countries that are dealing with their own expanding deserts are already adopting Wang's methods. Spain is utilizing it right now. It's actively expanding across different nations in Africa. It's being deployed in the Middle East. What started with a guy that people literally called crazy has provided an actual proven roadmap for saving the planet's disappearing arable land.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway from this whole explainer. When Wang Wenbiao first dragged his bulldozers out into the Sea of Death, the world laughed at him. They thought it was a joke. But the source material leaves us with this incredibly powerful thought. Why give up your dreams because others laugh? Because until today, everyone who has ever achieved greatness was laughed at first. The man who literally defeated the Sea of Death with some dry shrubs, a bunch of fluffy rabbits, and a solar horse, didn't let a little ridicule stop him. So, what impossible problem in your own life are you letting other people's laughter hold you back from solving? The decision is yours. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you next time.